Be sure to like and subscribe before we get this story started. They say evil leaves a stain that never fades. At 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, that stain still seeps through the walls. Most people know the legends, the haunted house, the voices, the possessions. But beneath the Hollywood stories lies a truth more terrifying than fiction. This is the real horror behind the Amityville house. What happened before the cameras arrived, and what never left. The house was quiet the night Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family. No screams. No struggle. Just 6 gunshots echoing through the upscale neighborhood of Amityville, each finding its mark as his parents and 4 siblings slept in their beds. It was November 13, 1974, when Ronald stumbled into a local bar, face pale and voice shaky, announcing, "You gotta help me. I think my mother and father are shot." By the time police arrived, the crime scene was already steeped in confusion. All 6 victims were found face down, with no signs of a fight. No neighbors reported hearing gunshots, even though Ronald used a loud .35 caliber Marlin rifle. It was as if the entire house had been sealed in silence. That silence never left. At first, investigators chalked it up to rage, maybe a psychotic break. Ronald, barely 23, had a history of drug use, erratic behavior, and violent outbursts. But when they pressed him on the details, his answer shifted. He blamed a mob hit, then a mysterious black-cloaked figure, and eventually confessed, but not without warning. "The voices told me to do it." The trial spun a web of insanity and possession, and while Ronald was ultimately sentenced to 6 life terms, the public's imagination clung to his words. But here's where the story fractures. What happened after the murders is what the world remembers. The infamous haunting of the Lutz family, who moved in a year later. George and Kathy Lutz bought the house for a fraction of its value, drawn in by the allure of waterfront property and perhaps a morbid curiosity. They lasted 28 days before fleeing in the middle of the night, leaving all their possessions behind. They claimed the walls oozed slime. That George would wake every night at 3:15 a.m., the exact time of the murders. That cold spots roamed the house, doors slammed themselves, and Kathy would levitate in her sleep. Their daughter Missy had an invisible friend named Jody, described as a pig with glowing red eyes, who watched her from the window. Reporters descended on the house like flies to a carcass. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, themselves controversial figures, declared the house a psychic nightmare. Photos taken inside seemed to reveal glowing eyes, strange orbs, and even ghostly children standing in doorways where no one had been. Skeptics, of course, tore the Lutz story apart. Lawsuits followed. Accusations of a hoax for money, even whispers that their account was invented over a bottle of wine with the book's author. But something never quite added up. Neighbors began to complain of strange noises at night. Visitors to the house claimed to feel sick, watched. A local priest, who attempted to bless the home, reported being slapped by an unseen force and told by a disembodied voice to get out. But what few know is that strange things had always happened at that property, even before the DeFeos. Old records suggest the land once belonged to the Shinnecock tribe and was used to house the sick and dying who were isolated from the rest of the village. Some believe the spirits of the forsaken never left. Others speak of a dark energy that collects in places of trauma, feeding off pain, madness, and fear. In private, local police officers who were first on the scene confessed they'd never felt anything like that house before. Cold, still, like it was waiting. And that waiting didn't end when the Lutz family fled. Over the years, multiple owners have come and gone, each one changing the address, trying to shake the stigma, to erase the stain of Amityville. Yet stories keep surfacing. Whispered voices in the dead of night. dreams that mimic the murders, electrical surges, unseen footsteps on the stairs, pets refusing to enter certain rooms. And then there's the basement. One former owner claimed he found a small, bricked-off section in the cellar, like a room inside a room. There was no record of it in the house's blueprints. The air inside was heavy, suffocating. He swore that when he opened it, he heard breathing, and something moved. He resealed it the same day and never returned. That's the real horror of Amityville. Not the books. Not the movies. It's that something in that house has always been there. Watching. Feeding. And it's still there now. The man who discovered the bricked-off chamber in the basement never wanted to speak publicly. His name was Thomas Whitaker, a contractor from New Jersey who briefly lived in the Amityville house in the early 1990s. He didn't stay long, just 6 months, before abruptly moving out and selling the property at a loss. But before he left, he told his sister something that would stay with her for decades. "There's something wrong with the house. It doesn't want to be opened." When pressed, he only elaborated on one incident, the day he broke through the wall. It was during a minor renovation. The house needed electrical updates, and the basement wiring was outdated and erratic. Thomas decided to redo the setup himself. That's when he noticed a part of the west basement wall sounded hollow. Behind the bricks, there was dead space. The dimensions didn't make sense, not according to the house's structure. Driven by curiosity and the fact he needed to get the wiring in place, he knocked through it. What he found wasn't a full room. It was more like a cell. For narrow concrete walls, stained and uneven, with a floor that sloped slightly downward. The room was no bigger than a large closet, but the air that hit him when he broke through was unlike anything he'd ever smelled. Not rot. Not mold. It was old. Cold. Like a cave that hadn't seen light in centuries. There were no fixtures. No markings. Just a strange series of scrapes along one wall, as if someone, or something, had tried to claw its way out. Thomas swore he heard something inside, as the last of the bricks fell. Not a voice. Not footsteps. Just breathing. Shallow. Raspy. Close. He resealed it within an hour. The wiring could wait. That night, the lights flickered for the first time. Strange patterns. Almost every owner of 112 Ocean Avenue since the 1970s has eventually reported electrical problems. It's become part of the house's reputation. Bulbs that burn out days after being replaced, power outages that only affect specific rooms, appliances turning on by themselves. Some of these could be explained by age, but more often than not, electricians found nothing wrong with the systems. In 2003, a couple named Marcus and Elena Sandler purchased the home with full knowledge of its past. They were skeptics. Marcus, a data analyst, Elena, a clinical psychologist. They dismissed the ghost stories as the product of mass hysteria and urban legend. For a while, everything was fine. No voices. No cold spots. Until they started keeping their dog in the basement. The dog, a rescued black Labrador named Bruno, refused to go near the far end of the cellar. The same wall Thomas had broken through years earlier. When forced, the dog would growl low and constant, backing away, for standing on end. On more than one occasion, they found deep scratch marks on the inside of the basement door. They assumed it was Bruno's doing. Until the night they locked Bruno in the upstairs laundry room, only to find fresh scratches the next morning on the basement door again. Still they stayed. Until Elena, a lifelong skeptic, experienced something she could never rationalize. She had gone downstairs late at night to retrieve something from storage. She heard music, faint, like an old lullaby. When she turned to leave, she felt a cold hand brush her lower back. She spun around. No one was there. The music stopped. The next day, she asked Marcus if he'd ever felt like the house was studying them. They sold the house 2 weeks later. The pattern of threes, one of the strangest, most consistent features reported in the house, is the recurrence of the number 3, 3 knocks, 3 scratches, 3:15 a.m. George Lutz had mentioned it decades prior, always waking at the same hour. Other residents say they began dreaming of 3 doors, 3 staircases, or 3 voices whispering from behind the walls. Religious scholars have pointed out that in demonology, mocking the Holy Trinity is common in manifestations. 3 being symbolic. Even stranger, in the town archives, a newspaper clipping from the 1930s tells of a young boy who vanished from a house on Ocean Avenue. He was found days later, dazed and barefoot, wandering near the water. When asked what happened, he simply replied, "The man in the shadows took me below. He had 3 faces." The address wasn't 112 Ocean Avenue then. It was 108. The property lines changed over the years. The house number too. But the land was the same. And it always comes back to 3. The last tenants in 2010, the house was purchased again, this time by a young family who had never seen the Amityville horror. They were from the Midwest, drawn to the property by its price and charm. They had 2 daughters and a baby on the way. They lasted 4 months. Neighbors say the family seemed happy at first, until the youngest girl stopped speaking. She started carrying around an old, broken baby doll that they'd never seen before. When asked where she got it, she said, "The man in the basement gave it to me." At night, the parents began hearing footsteps outside their door. Lights in the hallway would turn on without warning. The baby monitor would pick up whispering, though no one was in the room. And then came the screaming. One night, the father awoke to what he thought was a break-in, screams echoing from downstairs. He rushed to the living room, where his wife was already standing white-faced. The front door was wide open. The house was empty, but the screams had sounded like they came from inside the walls. They left the next morning. No for sale listing. No moving truck. They just disappeared. According to county records, they never registered another address in the state of New York. What lives in the Amityville house is not a ghost. It's not a single spirit. It's something older. It waits beneath the floorboards, behind the drywall. In that room no one should have ever opened. And it's still waiting now. To understand the true horror of the Amityville house, we must go far beyond the 1970s murders and ghost stories. We must peel back the layers of time to when the land was untouched by modern civilization, when shadows were longer and silence held secrets. The land on which 112 Ocean Avenue sits was once part of a dense forest, inhabited by the Shinnecock tribe. The Shinnecock were stewards of the land for centuries, and their connection to nature was sacred. But oral traditions and fragmented tribal records speak of a dark chapter, an ancient sickness that spread through the village, a mysterious plague that no one could cure. Those afflicted were taken to a secluded part of the forest, a place whispered about in Shinnecock legends as the Hollow. It was an area near the current location of the Amityville house. The sick were isolated in crude shelters, left to die or be healed by the spirits. The tribe shaman spoke of a presence that lingered in that hollow, a malignant force, neither spirit nor animal, that fed on pain and despair. The Shinnecock called it Yamaya's shadow, a name tied to an evil entity from their myths, a shapeless darkness that crept beneath the earth and whispered in the night. When European settlers arrived, the land was cleared and divided. Over the years, the hollow was built over, houses erected, lives lived, and buried atop ancient wounds. The dark energy beneath scientific studies on earth energies, or geomagnetic anomalies have found that some locations on Earth harbor unusual electromagnetic fields. These can affect human perception, induce hallucinations, and sometimes cause inexplicable phenomena. In recent years, paranormal investigators visiting the Amityville property have noted unusually high electromagnetic readings, far beyond what typical residential properties record. These spikes tend to center around the basement and that bricked-off room. Some theorize that the trauma of the DeFeo murders acted as a catalyst, an eruption of raw emotional energy that awakened or attracted something already dormant. The house became a nexus for this dark energy, amplifying it, feeding it, making it conscious. Voices from the walls. Multiple residents have reported hearing voices, not clear words, but low murmurs, chants, and unintelligible whispers. Some have tried recording them, only to find strange, rhythmic patterns in the static, almost like a language. In one chilling audio recording made by a paranormal team in 2016, a voice can be heard saying, "Three faces, three doors, come home." Experts in ancient languages and symbols who analyzed the tape suggested it could be a distorted echo of Shinnecock prayers mixed with something else, something alien and malevolent. A pattern of madness. Mental health professionals who have studied former residents report a common pattern: feelings of paranoia, depression, and anxiety developing rapidly after moving into the house. Many experienced vivid nightmares, sleep paralysis, and dissociative episodes. Ronald DeFeo Jr. himself claimed voices in his head told him to kill. George Lutz described waking in a trance, uncontrollable rage consuming him. Whether these symptoms are caused by a spiritual force or a psychological reaction to trauma and isolation remains debated. But the consistency across decades, families, and backgrounds is disturbing. The unseen watcher locals speak of a figure sometimes glimpsed in the peripheral vision. Tall, cloaked, faceless, watching silently from windows or standing in shadows. Sightings go back at least a century, though they were often dismissed as folklore or coincidence. One of the few times the figure was confronted was by a priest sent to bless the house in the early 1980s. The priest recounted that as he sprinkled holy water, the figure appeared briefly at the top of the stairs, then vanished, leaving a cold, heavy silence behind. Is the curse breakable? Attempts to cleanse the house through blessings, exorcisms, and rituals have repeatedly failed or only provided temporary relief. Experts warn that the house is not just haunted, but cursed. It's a place where the veil between worlds is thin, where a primal darkness thrives on suffering. Some believe the curse will end only when the bricked-off basement room is properly opened, cleansed, and the entity confronted directly. Others say that to do so is to invite disaster. A warning: if you ever find yourself near Ocean Avenue, take heed. The Amityville house watches. It listens. It remembers. And it waits. The real horror behind the Amityville house is not what the movies show. It's the evil that refuses to leave, and the darkness that may never be defeated. The Amityville house is a place where reality bends, and every layer of history is soaked in tragedy. But the story does not end with whispered legends and fleeting shadows. There is a reckoning long overdue, a confrontation with the darkness that has haunted 112 Ocean Avenue for centuries. The last owner's account in 2018, a man named David Matthews, a history professor and paranormal researcher, purchased the house with a singular purpose: to document, understand, and if possible, end the curse. Unlike previous owners, Matthews had no illusions about the house being a quaint family home or a curiosity. He viewed it as a case study in supernatural phenomena and the resilience of evil. David's first months were eerily calm. The house seemed dormant, almost indifferent to his presence. But on the night of December 13th, exactly 44 years after the DeFeo murders, the silence shattered. At 3:15 a.m., David was awoken by the unmistakable sound of 3 sharp knocks on his bedroom door. He ignored it at first, but the knocking grew frantic, desperate. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty. A cold breeze swept past him, carrying the faint smell of decay and old wood. Determined to confront whatever was inside, David spent the next weeks gathering historical documents, tribal records, and paranormal data. He worked with local historians, Shinnecock tribal elders, and spiritual practitioners versed in both Native American and Christian rites. Together, they pieced together a ritual, one that would require facing the house's dark heart. The bricked-off basement room, the cell, that Thomas Whitaker had discovered decades earlier. The opening of the cell on January 17, 2019, David and his team prepared for the ritual. The basement was cleared, candles placed at the room's threshold, and protective symbols drawn on the walls. Tribal blessings mixed with prayers from multiple faiths filled the air. With a crowbar and sledgehammer, David carefully removed the brick sealing the room. As the last brick fell, a wave of freezing air burst forth, carrying a whispering chorus of voices, echoing in all directions. Inside, the chamber was bare, except for scratches on the walls that seemed to glow faintly in the candlelight, pulsing with a sickly red hue. The air was thick, making every breath a struggle. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows, a dark, shifting form with 3 faces, each twisting in agony and rage. It spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "You have disturbed my prison. The curse will consume all." The battle within David's team began the ritual, calling on light to banish the darkness. Flames danced, shadows writhed, and the chamber trembled. The entity screamed in a terrible chorus, voices overlapping in a maddening cacophony. The 3 faces snarled, mouths spewing smoke and fire, eyes burning with hatred. The scratches on the walls seemed to bleed. David felt a crushing pressure in his chest, as if the house itself was trying to pull him under. For hours, the battle raged, not just in the physical world but in the unseen. Spirits clashed, wills collided, and the fate of the house hung in the balance. At the ritual's climax, David shouted a prayer of binding, invoking the sacred words taught to him by the Shinnecock elders. The room exploded in light, a blinding white that forced the shadows back. The entity let out a final, blood-curdling howl, then dissolved into dust. Aftermath, the bricks were replaced the next day. The air felt lighter. The house no longer seemed to watch or wait. David and his team left soon after. The house was sold once again, to a family unaware of the past, hoping for a fresh start. But some in the town still whisper of strange occurrences, brief power outages, faint whispers, the ever-present cold spot in the basement. Whether the curse was truly broken or merely dormant is unknown. What we've learned, the Amityville house is more than a site of horrific murders or a sensationalized ghost story. It is a locus of pain and evil that transcends time, a place where the worst aspects of human nature and ancient malevolence intersect. It reminds us that some places hold memories, not just of people, but of suffering itself, and those memories can twist into something dark and relentless. The story of 112 Ocean Avenue is a warning. Some doors should remain closed. Some rooms should never be opened. And some houses are never truly empty. The real horror. The real horror behind the Amityville house is the idea that evil is not always an external force. Sometimes it grows within us, fed by fear, hatred, and despair, and once awakened, it becomes nearly impossible to contain. The house did not create the tragedy. It merely amplified it. And as long as people remember, the darkness will never truly be gone. Not every dream fades when you wake up. Some follow you back. Tonight, you'll remember the ones you were meant to forget. This is Strange Dreams, Encounters with the Unknown. Be sure to like and subscribe before you forget how this all started. You awaken, not in your bed, but in a narrow hallway lit by a dull, yellow light that flickers like it's unsure whether it wants to stay on. The floor is checkerboard black and white, stretching endlessly in both directions. There's no ceiling above, just a pitch-dark void, and the walls are covered in peeling floral wallpaper, the kind you might see in an old motel long forgotten by time. A low hum pulses in the background, vibrating through your bones like it's alive. You don't know how you got here. You're barefoot, wearing the clothes you fell asleep in, a hoodie and sweatpants, but there's a strange weight to the air, as if gravity has loosened slightly. You begin to walk, choosing a direction without reason. With each step, the floor creaks, not wood, not tile, but something in between. The hum grows louder the farther you go. Not menacing, but invasive. Curious. Like it's watching you. Then you notice the doors. Each side of the hallway is lined with doors spaced evenly apart, all identical. Faded wood, brass handles, no numbers or markings. You try the first door on your right. Locked. The second. Also locked. But the third clicks open without force. You hesitate. Then step in. The room is dim, but recognizable. It's your childhood bedroom. Not a recreation, a perfect copy, down to the crooked drawing taped to the closet door and the missing knob on your nightstand. You haven't thought about this room in years, but here it is, preserved like an insect in amber. You walk toward the window and see nothing, just the same black void from the hallway. Suddenly, the closet door creaks open. You didn't touch it. You stare, waiting for something to emerge, but nothing does. Still, something is there. You can't explain it, but you feel it, the kind of primal unease that makes your skin tighten and your breath catch. You inch forward and push the closet door open further. Inside is a tunnel, narrow, earthen, and impossibly long, lit by faint, bluish glowworms embedded in the walls. You don't remember building tunnels behind your closet. You don't want to go in, but your body moves anyway. You crawl through the tunnel, the air growing colder and wetter as you go. The walls pulse faintly, almost breathing, and sometimes you think you hear voices murmuring behind them. Soft, pleading whispers in a language you've never heard, but somehow understand. They're asking questions. Personal ones. Questions only you know the answer to. Who do you dream about when no one is watching? What lie did you tell last week? Why didn't you answer that call? The tunnel opens into a cavern lit by flickering lanterns, revealing hundreds of tall, thin figures standing silently in rows. They wear masks, porcelain white with hollow, almond-shaped eyes. Their bodies twitch ever so slightly, like static waiting to resolve. In the center of the cavern is a tall grandfather clock. It ticks, but the hands move counterclockwise. As you step forward, the figures turn to face you in unison, and a high-pitched tone pierces the air. The sound doesn't come from the clock. It comes from inside you, from your chest. You double over, gasping as a strange light pulses beneath your ribs, throbbing like a heartbeat but glowing white-blue. The masked figures start to hum in harmony with the tone. Your body feels light again, like you're floating but also rooted. You look down. Your hands are fading, the edges blurred like you're being erased. But you don't feel afraid. You feel familiar, like you've done this before. And then the clock chimes once. The sound echoes across the cavern, rattling the masks, making the figures shudder and contort slightly, like puppets recoiling from invisible strings. You hear a voice. Not aloud. Not external. It's inside your skull. Do you want to remember? You try to answer, but no sound comes out. Your mouth moves, but the air in your lungs is gone. The masked figures take a step closer, and another, until they're within arm's reach, their masks tilting slightly, as though they're curious. You blink, and you're sitting on a train. A completely empty train car. Outside the window is the same black void. No tracks. No sound. No stations. The train hums gently beneath you, moving somewhere unknown. Across from you sits a child. They're wearing the same clothes you are. They smile slowly, sadly, knowingly. I waited for you, they say. You try to speak, but again, no voice. I kept the memories, the child whispers, pointing to a small wooden box sitting beside them. It's padlocked, but it glows faintly around the edges. They slide it across the seat toward you. You reach out, and your fingers pass through it. The child frowns. You're not ready yet. Then the windows of the train fill with light, blinding, blue-white, like the sky ripping open, and the train car begins to stretch, elongating like it's being pulled apart. You clutch the seat, but it dissolves beneath your fingers. Your feet lift off the floor. The child opens their mouth and speaks one final word, but it's lost to the brightness. And just before the world collapses into pure light, you hear the hum again. Not from outside. From your chest. Ticking. Buzzing. Beckoning. You fall through the light like a raindrop dropped from the edge of heaven. No impact. No sound. Just a slow spiraling descent through weightless silence. When sensation returns, it's subtle. First, the feeling of air on your skin. Then the soft texture of cotton beneath your fingertips. You open your eyes. You're lying in a hospital bed, but not a modern one. This one looks old. The kind you'd see in black and white war photos. Metal frame, thin mattress, exposed wheels. There are no monitors. No IVs. Just a window beside you, looking out into thick fog. It's completely opaque, and it pulses softly, like it's breathing. You sit up. The room is quiet, but not still. The shadows move unnaturally, bending along the walls like oil slicks resisting the shape of light. A metal tray sits at the foot of your bed. On it, a clipboard, a glass of water, and a key. You reach for the clipboard. It's covered in questions. Some are simple. Name, underscore, 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 date of birth, underscore, 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 last memory before arrival, underscore, 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 others are not. How many times have you died here? What did you forget on purpose? Do you still believe any of this is real? Each question begins to fade the moment you read it, vanishing letter by letter. You try to read faster, but the words dissolve before your eyes like melting snow. When you reach the last question, the ink turns red. Would you like to wake up now? There's no space to answer. Just a hollow silence, and your own shallow breath. You reach for the key. The moment your fingers touch it, the hospital walls crack. Not shatter. Not break. Crack. Quietly, like old plaster splitting from a hidden tremor. A low moan rises from beneath the floorboards. You stand up. The floor is colder than you expected, and with each step toward the door, the moaning grows louder, not pained. Hungry. The door creaks open before you touch it. Outside is not a hallway. It's a long, open corridor of mirrors, tall, antique frames resting on black sand. You look down. No footprints. You're not leaving a trail. The air smells like metal and moss. Each mirror shows a different version of you. In the first, you're asleep in your current bed, peaceful. In the second, you're lying in a coffin, open-eyed, smiling faintly, hands crossed. In the third, you're older, hunched over a desk, scribbling furiously into a journal as shadowy figures crowd the room behind you. But the fourth mirror, you freeze. Because it's watching you. Your reflection doesn't mimic your movements. It stares, blinks, tilts its head the opposite direction. Its expression slowly shifts into a crooked grin. Then it raises its hand and points behind you. You turn. There's nothing there. You turn back. Now the reflection has no face. Just skin. Blank. And the mirror begins to rattle violently. You step back, but the frame warps and stretches toward you. The glass ripples like liquid. The faceless reflection begins pushing through, pressing against the membrane-thin surface as if it were silk. You run. The corridor bends impossibly, curving upward like a spiral staircase, but you're not climbing, you're floating, gliding along invisible momentum. The mirrors blur past you, all showing variations of your life, but twisted, dream-logic versions. You smiling at a funeral. You underwater with lungs full of air. You whispering to someone who isn't there. You finally reach the end of the corridor. A door. Or something like a door. It's tall and narrow, shaped like a coffin stood upright, wrapped in barbed vines that twitch when you approach. The key from the hospital tray burns in your pocket. You pull it out. The barbs retract. The door opens. Inside is a room filled with clocks. Thousands of them. Grandfather clocks, wristwatches, digital clocks, broken hourglasses. None of them are ticking. All frozen at different times. In the center of the room is a chair. Sitting in it is you, but older, worn. Eyes sunken, hands trembling. The older version of you looks up, startled. "I told you not to come back," they say. You step closer, unable to stop yourself. Your limbs are slow, like you're wading through syrup. Your mouth opens, but only dust comes out. The older you coughs, then points to a table beside them. A black journal rests there. You pick it up. Its pages are empty except for one sentence on the first page. "You left this message for yourself." You turn the page. Don't trust the versions that smile. They want to stay asleep. Then the clocks begin to tick. All at once. The sound is unbearable. Metal on metal. 1,000 mismatched rhythms grinding against each other. The older you grabs your arm. "This isn't a dream anymore," they say, voice cracking. "This is memory. And memory is hungrier than dreams." The lights flicker. The room begins to fracture, walls splitting, clocks exploding into sand. A voice booms from the void outside, deep and unfathomable, echoing like thunder beneath an ocean. "Wake!" The older you scream something you can't hear, and you fall again. Back through the light. Back through silence. And this time, you land in your own bed. Home. Safe. Morning sun leaking through the blinds. You sit up, heart pounding. But something's wrong. Your journal is open beside you, and the sentence on the first page reads, "You made it back, but not alone." The words on the journal page don't change. You blink, rub your eyes, flip through the rest of the journal. Every page is empty, except the first. You made it back, but not alone. It wasn't there last night. You are sure of it. You didn't write this. You glance around your room. Everything looks normal. Too normal. Like someone tried very hard to reconstruct your space from memory. The posters are all slightly crooked. The books on your shelf are in the wrong order. The lamp that usually flickers no longer does. The imperfections that made it yours are off. There's also something you can't place. A feeling. Not dread. Not fear. More like dissonance. Like waking up from a dream and realizing it followed you into the waking world. You try to stand, but your legs are heavy, as if gravity is stronger here. The hum you heard in the hallway, faint and constant, is still present. You open your bedroom door. The hallway outside is dimmer than it should be. The lights work, but they flicker in rhythm. You walk down the hall and see your reflection in a mirror, except it's delayed. Half a second too slow. You lift your hand. It follows, but sluggishly. And for a brief moment, you swear your reflection smiles before you do. Your phone is on the kitchen counter. It's off. The battery is full. You turn it on. There's a message waiting. No sender. Just a single line of text. Check the closet. You look up. Your bedroom closet. The same one from the dream. You return to your room, heartbeat louder than your footsteps. You approach the closet slowly. You hesitate, then pull it open. There's no tunnel, no glowing worms. Just clothes, shoes, boxes. But at the bottom, where there shouldn't be anything, you spot it. A mask, porcelain white, almond-shaped, hollow eyes. Just like the ones worn by the figures in the cavern. You back away, but something else catches your eye. Taped to the inside of the closet door is a Polaroid. It shows you, sleeping in your bed. It's time-stamped with today's date, taken at 3:33 a.m. Your hand trembles as you peel it off the door. Written on the back in red ink, "The dreams don't stop. They shift." Suddenly, the hum in the air sharpens, like a pressure change before a storm. A low creak echoes from the hallway, slow and deliberate. You step outside your room again, and freeze. At the far end of the hallway stands a figure. Tall, still, wearing a mask. You blink, and it's gone. No footsteps, no sound. You run through the house. Every door is locked, windows closed, nothing out of place. Except for one thing. Every single mirror in the house, your bathroom, the hallway, even the back of your phone, no longer shows your reflection. They show the masked version of you, staring back, standing in rooms that don't exist in your house. Rooms with walls of pulsing black. Rooms filled with whispering shadows. You cover the mirrors. You try to breathe. Ground yourself. This must be a dream. But when night falls, it doesn't get dark. The sky outside your windows remains a pale gray, featureless. No stars, no clouds, just a blank dome pressing in. You try to sleep. You turn off the lights. But even with your eyes shut, you see flickering. You dream again. This time, you wake in a vast, circular library, floor to ceiling with books bound in leather and twine. The scent of dust and candle wax fills the air. Every book is blank, except one. It sits on a pedestal in the center of the room, glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with a hum. You approach. Its cover bears your name. You open it. The first page shows the same line from the journal. You made it back, but not alone. The next page reveals a list. Names, dates. Each line ends with a symbol, an eye with no pupil, a spiral, a stitched mouth. You keep flipping. At the end of the list, in fresh ink, your name, today's date. A new symbol, a mirror, cracked down the center. You look up. All around you, the shelves are beginning to warp. The books twist in place, opening on their own, pages flapping wildly like wings. A wind howls from nowhere, and the lights dim until only the pedestal remains lit. You try to run, but the floor melts beneath your feet, and you sink, fall, and wake again. You're in bed. It's morning. Your phone buzzes. A new message. "We told you not to open the door." Your bedroom closet is wide open, and inside it now stands a staircase, spiraling downward into blackness. At the top step, another Polaroid. It shows you standing at the edge of the same staircase, wearing the mask. You don't remember walking toward the staircase, but here you are, standing at the threshold of your own closet, staring into a space that absolutely should not exist. The steps descend in a tight spiral, made of worn wood that creaks before you even touch it. The air that rises from below is cold, damp, but also sweet, like rotting fruit left in a cellar. It curls around your legs, coiling like smoke. Your head tells you to close the door and burn everything, but your body doesn't listen. You take the first step. It groans under your weight. Behind you, the closet door shuts itself. A soft, final click follows. You're alone. The only light comes from a string of old bulbs hanging at intervals along the wall, flickering like tired fireflies. They buzz, and each one hums in the same frequency as the sound that's been following you since the first dream. You descend. The walls drip with moisture, lined with faded wallpaper that's peeling in long, curling strips. At random intervals, you see words scrawled into the wood beneath. He remembers wrong. You're not the first. Some doors open both ways. You don't know how long you've been walking. Time moves differently here. It folds over itself, like a broken film reel stuck on loop. Eventually, the staircase levels out and leads you into a narrow hallway. At the far end, a door made entirely of mirrors. You can't see your reflection in it. Instead, it shows the masked version of you, still waiting, expression unreadable. You reach for the handle. The moment your fingers touch it, the mirror shatters, without sound, without force. It simply dissolves into fine, shimmering dust that floats away like ash. Behind it, a room lit by candlelight. Circular, windowless, walls covered in more mirrors, each with a different version of you inside, laughing, screaming, crying, dancing. One presses its hands to the glass and mouths the word, "Run!" But something else is in the center. A figure, not masked, not human. It's tall, draped in black cloth that flows like liquid shadow, its head hidden beneath a veil stitched from the same silver-threaded material as the journal's ribbon. It stands before a pool of dark water, still and glass-like, but swirling beneath the surface with images that vanish when you focus on them. The figure raises a hand. It motions for you to come closer. You do, because of course you do. This isn't a place where your choices are entirely your own. The closer you get, the harder it becomes to hear your own thoughts. They begin to slip, drifting out of sync, looping, skipping, whispering back at you in voices that sound like yours but feel older, tired, altered. The figure points to the pool. You look down. The water shows your bedroom. Right now, you see yourself sleeping in your bed. Only, you're not alone. There's something under the sheets with you. Something breathing, slow and steady. Your reflection turns and looks directly at you. Not at the figure, not at the water, at you. Its eyes glow faintly behind the mask. But now, the mask is cracked, fractured across the mouth. A faint, crooked smile shows beneath. You stumble back. The figure doesn't move, but the pool begins to churn violently, splashing onto the stone floor. The images twist, showing you in dozens of dream places. The hallway, the tunnel, the train, the library, the hospital. Over and over. Looping. Collapsing in on one another like dominoes made of memory. You hear a voice again. This time, it's unmistakably yours. But not you now. It's older. Worn. Don't break the cycle. The veiled figure extends its hand. In its palm, another key. Different from the last. Black and metal. Carved with symbols you don't recognize. As your fingers close around it, You feel a surge behind your eyes, like a headache being injected from the inside out. The mirrors surrounding you begin to melt, slowly dripping down the walls like wax. Every version of yourself inside them starts to scream silently. Their mouths stretch open far too wide. Some begin clawing at the glass. One turns and begins pounding on the inside with a brick. One collapses. One burns. And then you're back. Your eyes snap open. You're in your bed again. Morning sunlight. Quiet house. But something's wrong. You look at your hand. You're still holding the key. The real one. Cold. Heavy. Etched with those strange symbols. You sit up. Your closet door is closed again. But now, a symbol is scratched into the wood. Deep. Angry. The same cracked mirror icon from the journal. You look around your room. Every photo you own, every mirror, every screen, has been turned to face the wall. All except one. Your phone, lying on your pillow. Its screen is on. A video is playing. It's footage of you, sleeping last night. But the video doesn't end. It keeps going. And in the final frame, just before the screen goes black, your eyes open. And you look straight at the camera.